Sarah worked double shifts at a small diner, barely making enough to cover her rent and basic needs. Every day, she watched an elderly homeless man sit outside in the cold, his weathered face showing years of hardship. Despite having only $80 in tips saved for her own Thanksgiving dinner, Sarah decided to use that money to buy him a warm holiday meal. She knew this meant having nothing left for herself, but seeing his hunger pained her more than her own empty stomach. 3 days later, as Sarah served her regular customers, a well-dressed man walked in with a letter that would turn her simple act of kindness into something that touched millions of hearts worldwide. Hi everyone, welcome to Mystic Tales. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. Sarah worked as a waitress at Ruby's Diner in downtown Chicago. Her small apartment rent took most of her paycheck, leaving her with barely enough for basic needs. Maybe these extra shifts will help me save for winter, she said to herself. Every morning at 7 a.m., Sarah noticed an elderly homeless man sitting on the bench across from the diner. "I'm James," he had told her one morning. His gray hair and kind eyes reminded her of her late grandfather. She often saw him searching through trash bins for food, which broke her heart. "Just ignore him, Sarah," the other waitresses said. "He's driving customers away," some customers complained. But Sarah could not look away. "A few dollars saved each day, and I'll have a nice Thanksgiving dinner," she thought. During her morning shifts, Sarah would sneak James a cup of hot coffee when no one was looking. "Thank you, dear," he would say with a gentle smile. "Lost my home after getting sick. Couldn't keep up with the medical bills," he had explained. $80 saved, Sarah counted her tips. She planned to buy a small turkey and some sides. The night before Thanksgiving, the temperature dropped below freezing. Through the diner window, she saw James huddled on his bench, trying to stay warm. "Grandpa always said helping others matters more than helping yourself," she whispered, remembering his words. Without hesitation, she took her saved tip money and went to the grocery store after her shift. "Bet will be $78, the cashier said. Sarah's hands shook as she handed over her savings. "Bread for dinner tomorrow it is," she thought to herself. "Here's something warm for Thanksgiving, James," Sarah said, approaching his bench. His eyes lit up at the sight of the hot food. "God bless you," he whispered, tears rolling down his weathered cheeks as she wrapped the blanket around his shoulders. She noticed a small silver chain around his neck, but thought nothing of it at the time. That night, Sarah went home to her cold apartment. Her stomach growled, but her heart felt warm. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness was about to change not just her life, but the lives of many others in ways she could never imagine. The next morning, Sarah walked to work in the cold November wind. She noticed James wasn't at his usual spot. The bench sat empty, covered in frost. "I hope James is okay," she whispered, worrying through her morning shift. Around noon, a tall man in an expensive suit walked into the diner. "Just coffee, please," he said, sitting in Sarah's section. He watched her serve other tables, making notes in his small notebook. During her break, Sarah overheard other waitresses talking. "Did you see that story on the news?" one said. "A wealthy businessman disappeared 3 months ago, and his family's still searching for him." The man in the suit came back the next day, and the next. "Coffee again, please," was all he would say. On the third day he spoke up. "Sarah, would you please sit down? I'm Michael Thompson, private investigator. I've been watching your interactions with James." "Am I in trouble for the free coffee?" Sarah asked nervously. "No, not at all," Michael smiled, pulling out a photograph. "Do you recognize this man?" Sarah's hands began to shake as she looked at the younger James in a business suit. James Harrison was CEO of Harrison Technologies, Michael explained. After his wife died, he couldn't cope. He donated his money to charity and disappeared. His daughter hired me to find him. Sarah couldn't believe it. The silver chain around his neck? His wedding ring, Michael nodded. He keeps it close to remember his wife. Where is James now? Sarah asked. Left early Thanksgiving morning for his daughter's house, Michael said. Before leaving, he told me, find the waitress who showed me kindness when no one else would. I'm just happy he's safe and warm with his family, Sarah said, tears forming in her eyes. Sarah went back to work, unaware that her life was about to change. The next morning would bring a surprise that would leave everyone in the diner speechless. The following morning, Sarah arrived early for her shift. The diner buzzed with unusual activity. 2 TV news vans were parked outside. Sarah, there are people here to see you, her manager said, looking stunned. In the largest booth sat James, now clean-shaven and wearing an elegant suit. Next to him was a young woman who shared his kind eyes. Hello, Sarah, James said, standing up. I'd like you to meet my daughter, Emma. We've been looking for my father for months, Emma said, her voice breaking. Your kindness brought him back to us. James spoke softly. That Thanksgiving meal reminded me of my late wife. She always said a warm meal could heal a broken soul. Your compassion woke me up from a long, dark dream. More people entered the diner. Michael Thompson appeared with documents in hand. Sarah, James has something to tell you. I've established a foundation in your name, James announced. The Sarah Wilson Foundation for Homeless Care. We're starting with $5 million. Sarah's legs grew weak. A chair appeared behind her just in time. I don't understand. That's not all, Emma added. Dad bought this diner. He's making you the manager with a full ownership stake. Sarah's co-workers gathered around, tears in their eyes. The local news crews filmed as James explained his plans to turn the diner into a place for homeless people could get free meals. But why? Sarah asked, still processing everything. Because you saw me as a human being, not just a homeless man, James replied. You gave your last dollars to help me, expecting nothing in return. The diner erupted in applause. Customers wiped tears from their faces. Outside, more news vans arrived as the story spread. There's one more thing, James said, reaching into his pocket. My wife's favorite saying is engraved on this. He handed Sarah a small silver bracelet. Sarah read the words through tears. Kindness given freely returns tenfold. Sarah, come look at this, Emma called, holding up her phone. Your story is everywhere on social media. Local newspapers want interviews, Michael said. Would you be comfortable speaking to them? I never thought helping someone would create such attention, Sarah replied. The diner had transformed within days. Regular customers watched as workers installed a new sign reading, "Everyone deserves a warm meal." How many people did we serve today? James asked, now dressed in his business suit but sitting at his old bench. 73, Sarah smiled. And look at this. She showed him a stack of receipts. Customers keep paying extra, saying, use this for someone who needs it. An elderly woman approached their table. Are you Sarah? She asked, tears in her eyes. My son lived on these streets for years. Please, sit down, Sarah offered. Someone showed him kindness, just like you did for James, the woman continued. Now my son has a job, a home. Here's $500. Help more people, please. The kitchen staff worked steadily, preparing meals. We need more cooking space, Sarah told James. "More people come every day." Already planned, James nodded. "Construction starts next week, but that's not all." Emma joined them, carrying blueprints. "We're opening 3 more locations," she announced. "Sarah, we want you to oversee all of them." A young man stumbled in, his clothes ragged. I haven't eaten in 2 days," he said quietly. "Take any seat you'd like," Sarah smiled warmly. "What can I get you?" "I don't have money," he whispered, looking down. "You don't need any," Sarah replied. "That's not how we work here anymore." James watched from his bench as Sarah served the man. "Remember when you used to sneak me coffee?" he asked. "Look what that small act of kindness created." "A single act of compassion can start a chain reaction," Sarah said, touching her silver bracelet. "I understand that now more than ever." 3 months later, Sarah stood in the renovated diner's kitchen. "We served over 200 people today," she told her staff. "Each one has a story, just like James did." "Sarah, you need to see this," Emma rushed in, holding a letter. "The city council voted. They're giving us 6 more locations." "And that's not all," James added, walking in with Michael. "Remember the foundation money? It's grown to $15 million from donations." A reporter asked Sarah for an update. How has life changed since that Thanksgiving night? "I still work the same hours," Sarah smiled. "Just differently now. Instead of worrying about tips, I worry about having enough seats for everyone." A small girl tugged at Sarah's sleeve. "My mom says you help my daddy," she said. "He has a job now. He's not sleeping in the park anymore." Your daddy helped himself." Sarah knelt down. "We just gave him a warm meal and a chance." James watched from his regular spot. "Sarah turned this place into what I always wanted but couldn't do alone," he told visitors. Every morning, Sarah placed a fresh coffee cup on the counter. "For anyone who needs warming up," the sign read. The diner's wall now displayed hundreds of thank you notes. "You gave me hope," one read. "Your kindness saved my life," said another. Sarah often touched her silver bracelet, remembering that cold Thanksgiving night. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes, she told new volunteers. "Ready to close up?" Emma asked one evening. "Just one more cup of coffee," Sarah smiled, serving a shivering woman who had just walked in. "Everyone deserves a warm welcome." Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mystic Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word